15 years since Ravanos and Elias arrived in New York City. The city is louder than any port, louder than the sea. It can swallow a man whole if he's not careful, and no one here is careful for long. Before he left Europe, Elias thought New York would be the beginning of something clean, a fresh start, work, food, a bed with a lock, a future you could build with your hands. But then the ship, and the deaths, and the monster. Now, New York doesn't feel like a promise. It feels like a machine. Steam, iron, sweat, and shadows, grinding day and night, without mercy. The streets are crowded, even after midnight. Horses strain against wagons, men shout over crates. Women carry baskets with their eyes lowered, moving fast. Everywhere you look, there's someone trying to sell something. An apple, a newspaper, a lie. And behind it all, the same truth Elias learned early. In New York, everything is priced. Elias survived the ship. He survived the long first 15 years. He survived the brutally cold winters. The innocent traveler is gone. In his place stands a hunter with tired eyes and careful silence. In the heart of the 5 Points neighborhood, a saloon shines like a lantern in the fog. Music pours out the doors. A violin, a piano that's seen better days, a singer laughing between verses. Men drift toward it in small groups, workers with grime under their nails, dock hands with stiff shoulders, men who look like they were born tired. Some come for drink, some come to forget, some come because they've run out of other places to go. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and whiskey. Laughter collides with argument. Men shout over card games. A drunk leans too close and gets shoved away. 2 others watch the shove, deciding whether it's worth turning into a fight. Every table could become its own small war. Money changes hands, and grudges are born. Behind the bar, behind the smiles, behind the velvet curtain, the real business begins. Gambling that can make a man's night, or ruin him, not just because of the losses, but because a desperate man doesn't think clearly. And the owners of this place prefer desperate men. The front looks like entertainment. The back works like a trap. A man who wins big is congratulated. A man who loses big is invited to work it off. A man who can't pay is reminded he still has valuables, a watch, a wife, or his fear. Down a narrow hallway, women wait in rooms that smell of perfume and regret. The saloon sells comfort, pleasure, illusion, whatever men will pay for. The girls learn quickly what the city teaches everyone. If you want to stay safe, you keep smiling, even when you don't feel like smiling. There's a woman connected to this place who doesn't fit with the rest of the building. Her name is Madame Colette. Most of the men downstairs think she's only a manager, someone who handles the girls, keeps the rooms turning over, keeps the liquor flowing, keeps the customers spending. That's the version they're allowed to see. But the staff learn fast that Colette answers to no one in the saloon. Not the front man, not the gamblers, not the boys who collect money outside. When she speaks, people move. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. She's calm in a way that makes arguments stop. And she has a habit people notice without meaning to. She watches faces more than cards. She watches hands more than money. She watches exits. Colette is not impressed by men, not frightened by them either. She treats them like weather, something predictable, something to plan around. No one remembers when she first started working here. They only know she's always been in the back rooms, like she belongs there. Outside, boys with hard eyes collect protection money from shopkeepers who can barely afford bread. The message is always polite, until it isn't. A hand held out, a small nod, a quiet reminder. Pay, or your window breaks. Pay, or your car tips. Pay, or the wrong crowd waits for you when you lock up. Above the noise in a private shadowed balcony, Ravanos watches everything, silent, patient, untouchable, like a king who never needs to raise his voice. People think power in New York looks like fists and pistols. Ravanos prefers something cleaner. He keeps 2 women near him, each useful in a different way, each tied to him in ways no one downstairs would dare to name out loud. Madame Colette runs the saloon's hidden spine. The back rooms, the wagers, the debts, the favors. She knows who can pay, who can't, and who will do something stupid when cornered. She doesn't need charm, she uses certainty. Seraphina Vale does the opposite job. She stands in the light. She draws eyes upward, draws crowds in, draws men into spending money they don't have, following impulses they don't understand, and making promises they won't remember until it's too late. And when the night is finished, when the doors close, when the last drunk stumbles into the fog, sometimes the 3 of them leave together, not through the front, through private corridors, through back stairwells, into the city where no one asks questions after midnight. There are men who would sell their souls just to touch Seraphina's hand. There are men who would kill for a night in Colette's room, but those men never understand the truth. Neither woman belongs to them. They belong to Ravanos. They share his bed at times. They share his nights. They walk the streets with him, hunting the city the way wolves hunt a field. Quiet, organized, without urgency. Yet even with all that, Ravanos is not bound to them the way he once was to Isabella. Isabella was old-world hunger and loyalty, sharpened by blood and ruin. She understood Ravanos not as a man, but as a force, something you don't tame, only follow. Colette is colder than Isabella ever was, controlled, practical. She doesn't love like a human. She calculates. Even pleasure feels measured with her, like she refuses to give anything away for free. And Seraphina is too modern, too polished, too vain. She likes velvet dresses and fine rooms and applause. She still enjoys being admired, still needs it in a way Isabella never did. Ravanos tolerates these flaws because they serve him. He also knows what they are: useful, beautiful, dangerous, and never quite enough to fill the space Isabella left behind. 15 years in New York taught Ravanos what Sicily never could. Here, people crowd together in millions. No one knows anyone. No one asks too many questions. A man can disappear inside a city like this. A monster can do far worse. And no one will notice until it's too late. Elias found work at the Crowley Detective Agency. At first, it was nothing important. Mopping floors, running errands, carrying messages, listening to the client's lies. But Elias listened and learned. Listened like it mattered, because it did. People always tell you who they are, if you hear the right parts. Silas Crowley didn't look like a hero. He was stocky, with eyes that didn't waste time. He wore his coat like a man who slept in it. Crowley believed the world made sense if you followed the money. He didn't believe in monsters. He believed in drunks, thieves, jealous husbands, greedy men. Vampires were fairy tales for children and fools. One night, Crowley shoved a file across the desk.
Read it,
He said. Elias opened it. A woman missing, a husband angry, a bar owner claiming innocence. Elias looked up.
You want me to find her?
Crowley stared like Elias had asked something stupid.
I want you to learn how men lie
Crowley said.
and how they tell the truth by accident.
Elias nodded slowly. Crowley leaned back.
People think detective work is bravery. It's not. It's patience.
Elias didn't argue. He'd heard Crowley say the same thing many times. Plus, patience was something he'd learned at sea. Patience was something he'd learned surviving the vampire Ravanos. Crowley taught him the city's language, footprints in slush, bruises hidden under sleeves, nervous hands, missing buttons, a lie told too quickly. Every detail mattered, because every detail could be proof of a crime. Years passed. Elias became the man Crowley trusted when a case turned ugly. When someone disappeared, when blood appeared, when fear took hold. He was quiet. He was disciplined. He didn't gamble, didn't brag, didn't drink himself stupid. Other men called him boring. Crowley called him useful. The whole time, Elias chased a single ghost, Ravanos, a name that followed him like a curse through every alley and every sleepless night. Sometimes Elias felt him nearby, almost in his grasp, but then the feeling would vanish, leaving only fog and frustration. Crowley caught him staring at a strange mark on a victim's neck once. 2 punctures, close together, too clean. Crowley grunted.
Dog bite.
Elias didn't move.
That's not a dog.
Crowley narrowed his eyes.
Then what is it?
Elias considered the room, the client, the clock. Then he said carefully,
A man who likes to use a knife.
Crowley nodded, satisfied.
That's better, because men exist.
Elias didn't correct him. Not yet. He locked the truth away in the back of his mind, sharpened his detecting skills, and waited for Ravanos to make a mistake. That winter, word spread of a woman who could stop a room with a single note. Men called her a miracle. Women knew she was trouble. Her name was Seraphina Vale. Seraphina sang like velvet. Her voice wasn't just beautiful. It was commanding, mysterious, controlled, like it reached inside men and turned their thoughts and desires. Every night the club packed tight, shoulder to shoulder, breath and heat and whiskey. The men stared up at Seraphina like she belonged to a higher world. She smiled, and the room softened. Arguments forgotten, wives forgotten, futures forgotten. For a few minutes, everyone belonged to Seraphina, and that was the dangerous part. Because Elias had seen that kind of influence before, not in singers, in killers. Elias stood near the back. He didn't clap loudly. He didn't whistle. He didn't drink. He watched. He watched how the men leaned forward, how their faces relaxed, how their eyes didn't look away. Seraphina controlled the room like she'd practiced it for years. And maybe she had. A drunk beside Elias slurred, "Ain't she an angel?" Elias didn't answer. The drunk nudged him. "Where you from, friend? You don't look like 5 points." Elias kept his eyes forward. The drunk laughed. "Don't matter. Nobody stays clean in this city." Elias finally spoke, low.
Some of us try.
The drunk snorted. "Try all you want." Elias didn't respond after that, because he wasn't trying to stay clean. He was trying to stay alive. Seraphina didn't sleep behind the stage like the other girls. She lived uptown, in a penthouse, high above the filth, where the city couldn't touch her. There she lived with her grandmother, Rivka, an old-world woman who adored her precious girl. Maybe that's why she didn't see the truth for so long. Rivka told herself she was imagining things. Seraphina slept late. Seraphina hated bright rooms. Seraphina had always been delicate. But love doesn't make you blind forever. And slowly, Rivka noticed patterns. Curtains stayed closed. Servants whispered. And every morning, Rivka ate alone, staring at an empty chair. Worst of all, 10 years passed, and Seraphina didn't age. Not a wrinkle, not a change. Unnatural, unholy. What was wrong with her precious girl? Rivka began watching her granddaughter more carefully, listening at night, checking locks, not praying, investigating. She checked Seraphina's sheets in the mornings, cold, untouched. She watched servants exchange looks they wouldn't explain. She even spoke to the doorman downstairs, trying to sound casual. He shrugged. Miss Vale comes and goes at odd hours.
Alone?
Rivka asked. The doorman hesitated. Not always. Rivka's stomach tightened. Then one night, fear turned to certainty. Rivka took the key, held her breath, and opened Seraphina's door like she was entering a tomb. The room was too cold, too still. Even the air felt wrong, like it didn't belong to the living world. Rivka stepped inside, careful, as if any sound might wake something dangerous. Her hand shook as she lifted her candle. She scanned the bed, empty. Her eyes moved to the window, curtains thick as theater drapes. Rivka swallowed. If sunlight touched Seraphina's skin, the truth would reveal itself, whatever that truth might be. Rivka reached for the latch. She didn't lift the window a hand's width. Before she felt it, a presence behind her. No footsteps, no warning, no sound, just certainty. Seraphina stood behind her, silent, so close Rivka could feel the cold coming off her. Rivka turned and saw her granddaughter's face change. No warmth, no humanity, only hunger, only survival. The beautiful singer was gone. Something ancient stared back. Rivka's voice barely worked. Seraphina. Seraphina tilted her head.
Grandmother.
It was her voice. The same voice from the stage. Perfect, controlled. Rivka tried to step back, but her legs felt weak.
What are you?
Seraphina's expression didn't change.
I'm still your granddaughter. Rivka shook her head, tears rising. No, my sweet girl, this isn't... Seraphina moved closer. Rivka's candle trembled. I didn't want you to know. I tried to keep it separate. Rivka swallowed hard. Separate? Seraphina's eyes lowered briefly like she was choosing words. The stage, the songs, the city, and this, she added quietly. Rivka's hands clenched. You never eat in the morning. Seraphina didn't answer. Rivka whispered, broken. 10 years. Seraphina's face tightened for the first time, a flicker of irritation. Then calm again. Time doesn't change me. And you knew, Rivka said, voice shaking. You knew I would notice.
Seraphina looked at the window, then back at Rivka.
You should have stayed out.
Rivka tried to run, but she only managed a step. There was no scream, only the sound of Rivka's candle hitting the floor, and the heavy hush that follows when the world ends for one person. For a moment, Seraphina stood perfectly still above her grandmother's body. Her jaw was tight, her hands clenched at her sides. Anger came first, sharp and immediate, because Rivka had pried where she shouldn't have, because she had opened the door, because she had reached for the window like the rules of the world still mattered inside this room. Seraphina whispered through her teeth, as if Rivka could still hear her.
Why would you do that?
The words weren't cruelty. They were frustration, almost pleading, like Seraphina couldn't accept the mistake had happened. Then she looked down, and something in her face broke. Not completely, not like a human would break, but enough. Enough to reveal what she tried to bury under perfume, applause, and silk dresses. Rivka wasn't just a witness. Rivka was her grandmother, the only person who had loved her before the clubs, before the dresses, before the men staring up at her like she was something holy. Seraphina knelt slowly beside the body, studying Rivka's face, as if she could bargain with it, argue with it, change what had already been done. She touched Rivka's cheek with trembling fingers. Cold, too cold. Seraphina pulled her hand back quickly, as if the cold accused her. And in that moment, she didn't look like a predator. She looked like a woman who had made a mistake she didn't know how to survive. Her eyes flicked to the door, then to the curtains, then back to Rivka. Her mind was already racing ahead, not to grief, not to prayer, not to guilt, to consequences, to Ravanos, to Colette, to what they would say when they found out she'd let this happen. Because in Seraphina's mind, that was the truth. Rivka had died because Rivka had pushed too far, not because Seraphina had killed her. That last connection didn't fully form in her. It stayed disconnected, blurred, protected by denial, because if she admitted it clearly, she would have to carry it. And Seraphina couldn't afford to carry anything heavy. Not in Ravanos's world, not with Colette watching. Seraphina stood again, breathing hard, trying to steady herself. She stared down at Rivka one last time. Then she whispered, very softly, like a frightened child trying not to be heard.
I didn't want this.
And somewhere in the dark, the silence offered no comfort. Seraphina had time before sunrise, enough to make sure the room told the story she wanted it to tell. By morning, Rivka was dead. Doctors blamed the heart. Police blamed bad luck. Servants blamed spirits. But no one had the right answer. Her family demanded justice. They didn't understand what they were asking for, but they paid Crowley's agency to uncover the truth, whatever it cost. When Elias read the report, his stomach tightened. Cold room, closed curtains, a young woman unchanged by time. He had seen this evil before. And the worst part, the report didn't mention blood. It didn't mention violence. It described a death that looked natural, which meant whoever did it knew exactly how to avoid suspicion. That took experience. That took control. The same morning Rivka died, Madame Colette sat behind the velvet curtain with the accounts laid open. A runner stood in front of her, hat in his hands, eyes fixed on the floor, too scared to look up. Colette listened without interrupting. Then she asked only one question.
Did anyone see her leave?
The runner swallowed. No, ma'am. Colette nodded once. No anger, no panic, just a decision being made. She closed the ledger softly and said,
Good.
A pause, then quieter, more to herself than to him.
Because if Ravanos hears this from someone else, she'll wish she'd died twice.
Crowley tapped ash into a tray.
Family's upset. Old woman drops dead. They want someone blamed. Elias kept reading. Crowley leaned in. Any angle?
Elias spoke carefully. The granddaughter.
Crowley raised an eyebrow. The singer?
Elias nodded. Seraphina Vale?
Crowley snorted. Singers don't kill grandmothers.
Elias met his eyes. This one might.
Crowley studied him. You got proof? Crowley asked.
Elias closed the file. Not yet.
Crowley nodded once. Then get it. And don't come back with ghost stories.
Elias stood. I won't.
That night, Elias went to the club. Seraphina sang like nothing had happened. Her smile was clean, her hands graceful, her eyes bright enough to fool the men who wanted to be fooled. Elias wasn't concentrating on the music too much, because something felt so off here. When the show ended, Seraphina disappeared behind the stage. Elias followed, not close enough to be seen, not far enough to lose her. He moved through hallways and service doors with the patience Crowley taught him. A city full of people is the easiest place to follow someone, if you know how to behave like you belong. Seraphina moved through a private entrance, a corridor Elias hadn't seen before, a corridor meant for people who weren't supposed to be watched. Elias slowed his breathing. His steps became quieter, his eyes fixed on details, a scuff mark by a door, fresh ash in a tray, new locks on old wood. Someone important used this route. The corridor opened into a hidden office. Elias approached and stopped short. Light leaked through the crack of a door. He leaned in, careful, and what he saw inside didn't just confirm his fear. It explained 15 years of it. Ravanos sat counting money, calm as a banker, precise as a priest. Beside him stood Madame Colette, not older, not changed the way humans change, composed, pale, her expression unreadable. Elias watched their hands, watched the money, the ledger, the control of the room. This was the vampire's new empire.
Colette spoke without looking up. The Crowley Agency has been asking questions.
Ravanos continued counting. Coin, coin, coin. They ask questions every day.
Colette's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the corridor beyond it, then back to Ravanos. Not like this. This one is careful.
Ravanos paused for half a breath. Not surprised, only attentive. Careful men are rare.
Careful men are dangerous.
Ravanos finally smiled faintly, like he appreciated the warning more than the fear behind it. Or useful.
Colette's voice stayed cool as she asked, "Do you want him alive?"
Ravanos placed the last coin down neatly. For now.
Colette nodded once, as if she'd already begun planning for every other version of now. Elias watched her and understood something important. Colette wasn't just Ravanos' employee, she was his gatekeeper. And she moved like she'd been at his side long enough to stop asking permission.
Then, Seraphina entered. Elias understood immediately from how she had walked into the room as if she belonged. No fear, hesitation, or surprise. She wasn't just a singer. She was another of Ravanos' creatures, another polished tool, another carefully placed piece in a growing machine. Elias slipped back into the corridor. He didn't run. Running makes noise. Noise gets you killed. He backed away slowly, silently, step by step, letting darkness hide him. And then, a soft voice cut through the smoke. Ravanos didn't turn. He didn't need to. He only smiled faintly. He's here. Ravanos murmured, as if he could smell him.
Colette's head tilted slightly, just enough to show she heard. She didn't look afraid. Her face didn't change at all. But one hand slid calmly across the desk and closed the ledger. Softly, precisely, a small act of control.
Seraphina, on the other hand, reacted like a woman hearing gossip in a crowded room. She leaned in a fraction, eyes bright with curiosity, and asked, "Is that a problem?"
Colette finally looked at her, cold and sharp. "Don't be foolish."
Seraphina's smile thinned, but she didn't look away. Ravanos remained calm, almost pleased. "Not a problem," the vampire said, his smile deepened by a hair, a familiar scent.
Colette's voice stayed measured. "He'll bring trouble."
Ravanos's tone was gentle, almost affectionate, but final. "He'll bring himself."
Seraphina laughed under her breath, the sound pretty but not warm. "Let him come closer."
Colette's eyes returned to the door, calculating distance, angles, exits. He already has come close enough.
Ravanos didn't move. He didn't chase. He simply waited, because whatever was in that corridor would have to leave eventually, and Ravanos had all night. Elias felt his stomach drop. 15 years of hunting, 15 years of waiting, and Ravanos had known before Elias even stepped into the corridor. Elias kept moving, slowly, quietly, but now he understood something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't Elias finding Ravanos. This was Ravanos allowing Elias to get close.